Yo, what's up, gun fam? It's the Gun Brother. Thank you for tuning in. So I wanted to do a quick reaction, kind of informational video based on the ALEC BALDWIN incident that happened recently. A lot of information. I waited because a lot of the information that was coming out was just wrong, a lot of speculation, and then that was quickly followed by conspiracy theories, etc. But I wanted to do a video from the angle of basically underscoring firearm safety, okay? That is the important part. I don't care what your issues are, which side of the fence you lay on. Firearm safety is the most important thing, and that was definitely proven by this incident that happened. So let's get into it. So when the incident first broke, of course, you know, the stories were all over the place. I saw everything ranging from BALDWIN was practicing the shot to he was playing around to the day was over and he just wanted to do one more take and just all kinds of stuff. So I tried to wait till some of the more, just to see what the more prevalent facts were or statements were. Doesn't mean that they're fact, but just what the most consistent statements were. And so it seems to turn out that one of the most consistent stories is there were 3 guns set up outside wherever they were shooting. That were supposedly set up by the armorer that was on set or the whoever was in charge of the firearms. And one of the directors grabbed one of the guns, gave it to BALDWIN, and they say he yelled "cold gun." If you remember, the first headlines just said BALDWIN was told that the gun was unloaded. It just was so foggy at that point. So I remember when I first heard it, the first thing I thought was, you don't let somebody tell you the status of a gun. When they give it to you, you check it, okay? And that's just being familiar with firearms, say, okay? So so he hands him the gun, says it's a cold gun, and again, that's a little foggy. I've seen that mean, or is supposed to mean, everything from the gun was loaded with blanks to the gun was empty. So whatever one it was, we don't know, okay? Or I don't know. I don't know what a cold gun means in Hollywood. Then BALDWIN proceeds to show or practice a shot that he was drawing from a holster and was going to take a shot, and the shot, I guess, was going to be directly at the camera. And Hutchins and Souza were behind the camera, and they were struck by the shot when the firearm discharged after BALDWIN squeezed the trigger. Rule that was violated is very clear. And in these rules, and I'm gonna go through all of them and also talk about some other events that happened, but the rules there said a whole bunch of different ways. People take words out, add words, because they say, oh, this, that makes sense, whatever. They all, in effect, mean the same thing, okay? Number 1 rule is never point a gun at something you don't intend to shoot, destroy, or kill. It's also worded as keep your gun pointed in a safe direction, and the definition of a safe direction is any direction in which personnel injury or property injury or damage is less likely, okay? So either way, it means don't point a gun at somebody. And it also ties to one of the other rules, treat every firearm as if it's loaded. So even if you thought that the gun was unloaded, it doesn't mean you should point it at somebody. So even in that instance, if I was in that, if I was the personnel, I wouldn't have felt comfortable with him pointing the gun at me. And if I was BALDWIN, I wouldn't have felt comfortable pointing the gun at them. I don't care what anybody said. However, I would have opened seal in the check. And that check is very quick. So they said he had a period-specific firearm. And I have to assume that that's most likely a single-action revolver. I do have a double-action revolver here. And I just want to show, okay, in my set, there's foundation on either side of me, so those are both safe directions as far as the discharge goes. But I've unloaded this gun, but I left it like this because I want to show you how quick the check is. Okay, I would open the cylinder, look in it, and make sure that all those cylinders were empty. So that's what the empty revolver would look like. Okay, see straight through it. Okay, that check only takes a second. If he was to check to see if there were blanks in it, I know that there are some standards in place in Hollywood about even shooting blanks in the direction of anyone. Because if something's in the barrel, or depending what the ammo was sealed with, a projectile could still come out of the firearm. So that check is really quick. If you hand me a gun and say, oh, cold gun, I'm saying, all right, well, let's see. Okay, cold gun, there's nothing in it. That's how quick that check is. So, and then firearm safety, there's nobody behind this camera, and I would just, again, don't want to tell them how to do the job, but I would just think that if I have to film this shot, okay? And I don't even, that's really weird, even just pointing at you guys or at the camera, and if I was watching it would feel weird. But if I had to film that shot, there wouldn't be anybody behind the camera. Even if he wanted to squeeze the trigger, if we wanted to see how it looked, he would do it at the camera. I'd be over here saying, oh, that looks great. Firearm goes off, all we got is a dead camera. And that's far better than what happened. Just a couple of other other firearms rules. So again, that's the most important one. Treat every weapon as if it's loaded. And I've heard guys even argue that, saying, oh, if it's loaded, you wouldn't do this, you wouldn't do that, but you would do this, blah, 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 whatever. Treat every weapon as if it's loaded in regards to, you wouldn't point it at someone if it was loaded. Never point a firearm at something you don't intend to kill, destroy, /shoot. Like I said, it's just worded in different ways. Another important one, keep your finger off the trigger until you're ready to fire. Anytime you pick up a firearm, your finger should be on the frame. So just grabbing this is my M&P 45, okay? And if I pick it up, anytime I pick it up, my finger's here, okay? Right now the slide's locked to the rear. I can see that there's no ammo in the chamber, but I pick it up here. If I'm holding it for any other reason other than ready to shoot, my finger goes here. Once I aim in, my finger can go to the trigger because that means I've selected something. I'm not pointing in an unsafe direction and I have identified a target, okay? And that leads me to my next one, okay? And the finger, well, before I go to that, the finger on the trigger, that happens, okay? I've seen it happen. I've been training for a long time. I've trained officers, a lot of officers. One of the most common things that happens, and I've seen competition shooters do it too, is coming out of the holster, their finger will go to the trigger before they get up on the target, and that may result in a negligent discharge. Seeing a few people shoot themselves in the leg that way. So your finger shouldn't be on the trigger until you're ready to fire, you've selected that target. So keep your finger off the trigger until you're ready to fire. Identify your target and what's beyond. These accidents are usually a homeowner shooting a loved one or somebody that they know in their home because they heard a noise, went downstairs or went to investigate with their firearm, saw a shadow, shot it, okay? That's not identifying your target. You don't know what that is. You have to identify your target, okay? And what comes with that law or with that rule is identify your target, what's beyond and what's before it, okay? If there's a room behind it where you have loved ones in it, you don't want to risk over penetration should you miss. What's before it? Are people running around as, kids? Is there anything between you and the target? So identify your target, number one, then what's beyond and what's before it, okay? Know what you're shooting at. Don't shoot at shadows. Don't shoot at sounds, okay? And we're trained by this, ironically, from the movies, okay? The alien runs by, knocks over a broom, boom, 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 okay? You can't do that. You can't shoot indiscriminately at sounds, shadows, things that you have not identified as a target, okay? Quick rundown. Keep your firearm pointed in a safe direction or don't point it at something you don't intend to shoot or destroy. Keep your finger off the trigger until you're ready to fire. Identify your target, what's beyond and before it, and treat every weapon as if it's loaded. If you follow those firearm safety rules, every accident that we look at, you can kind of generally figure out which one of those rules was violated. Cleaning accidents a lot of times happens because the firearm isn't cleared before they go to engage the firing pin to open the firearm up, clear the firearm. Shouldn't be any ammunition in the area that you're not doing. If you're not engaged in shooting, ammunition shouldn't be in the area. If the gun is for home protection, then that gun is loaded. You're aware of that and it's stored in a manner that it is easily accessible for home protection. Some things aren't rules, okay? Some things are mandated by statute. Like if we talk about the unfortunate accident where the toddler shot the mom that was on a Zoom call not too long ago. And I want to say that happened more than once in a short period of time. But that goes to statute. By statute, you can't have your firearm accessible to unauthorized individuals. And that's everything from a toddler, minor, child under whatever age statute in your area, all the way to adults that may be disqualified otherwise. Criminal charges to having a disability that makes it difficult for them to operate the firearm properly, things like that. Sometimes it's not a part of those universal firearm safety rules. Sometimes it's statute. Sometimes it's just common sense, just things that you shouldn't do. But firearm safety is very important. And when these accidents happen, it's usually because the person hasn't learned the rules. okay? And that's why I encourage all of you, go take a safety class. Again, I've been instructing for 15 years. I instruct in the DC area. I have classes coming up. I'll have links to those to if you're in the DC area and want to sign up. I'll kind of keep updating that along with this video. But go somewhere in your area, take a class. Again, this is not about whether you believe in gun control or not. This is about gun safety. Either one of these, you can Google Alec Baldwin gun rights stance. You'll see what his stance is. Doesn't have anything to do with gun safety, okay? You have to understand gun safety if you're going to handle firearms. I highly suggest you go take a class. There's a ton of videos on it, but go take a class, get some hands-on experience with it, okay? One thing that I find when I get in, I don't want to go too far into this, but one thing I find when I get in discussions with people that are against guns and gun control or against guns for gun control, things like that, the first question I ask them is, have they ever fired a firearm? And usually they say no, and that's just crazy to me. But even if you have a loved one that likes firearms and you don't, and something happens and you have to handle that firearm, if you've never had the basic training, you don't know what to do with it, accident. That's what's going to happen, okay? So I just encourage everybody, at least no matter what side of the fence you're on, go take a class, get educated, handle some firearms, at least understand the basics, understand those basic safety rules so this doesn't happen to you. Again, thanks for tuning in. Like and subscribe if you already haven't. If it's your first time here, welcome. Again, this is not to disparage anyone. This is for education and awareness and for something positive to come out of the event. Get trained, stay safe. Gun Brother, out.